The world of virtual reality is an ever-changing and ever-evolving one, yet the question still remains the same. Which one is better, standalone VR or PCVR? And your boy Comfortability is here to help you answer the question. Before we can get into the pros and cons of both or which one is better, we first need to define what standalone VR and PCVR is. Standalone VR is VR that doesn't require a PC and is fully mobile, meaning that you can go wherever, whenever you want. Examples of this include the Oculus Quest 2 and the Pico Neolink 3 headsets. PCVR is VR that requires a PC and is usually wired to the PC or connected to the PC wirelessly via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. Thus, you cannot go everywhere and anywhere whenever because you always need a PC with you. And to be clear, just about any standalone VR headset can be a PC VR headset once you connect it to the PC. But to be even more clear than that clear, when we're talking about standalone VR headsets, we are not talking about that smartphone crap that they sell you at Walmart. No. Not the Google lenses, none of that. That's just a phone on your face. It's not true VR. When we're talking about VR right now, standalone VR, we are talking about Oculus Quest and up. And shouts out to the smartphone VR stuff out there. I ain't mad at them. It's just that it's not the true VR that they're trying to sell you. It's fake. But now let's talk about the pros and cons of both that'll help us come to a conclusion on this question. Let's start with PCVR. Here are some of the pros of PCVR. Number 1, image quality. PCVR on average, or rather almost all the time, has better image quality than standalone VR. See, the reason for that is because VR requires a lot of processing, really requires a great graphics card and even a better CPU in order to render a lot of these images, because remember, VR is not like your normal mediums that you're used to watching, whether it's TV or video games. VR is an immersive space, meaning that they don't just deal with up and down and left and right, they deal with up, down, left, right, and depth, meaning that they don't just use 2D images to make things happen. They use 3D renderings and modelings to help you feel very immersed into the world that is VR. Unlike regular video games that are really just using 2D versions, just squares and triangles. VR is using cubes and pyramids. And because of all this hard work, VR normally requires great graphics cards. And when you're using your PC, you can use some of the most top of the line graphics cards that will give you some of the most top of the line experiences on your VR headset. You see, a VR headset when a standalone, it usually has some pretty good graphics cards, and standalone VR has caught up significantly to PC VR, but the graphics cards and the processing power on a standalone VR still has not quite caught up yet to a great PC that a PC VR would be attached to. So there's that. So the winner for quality goes to PC VR. Numero dos, gaming. See, PC VR tends to have way more games and way better games than standalone VR has. Now again, standalone VR, and this is going to be kind of a theme throughout this video, is beginning to catch up more and more with PC VR. But as of right now today, PC VR has much better games and much higher quality games than standalone VR can bring to the table. We have Half-Life Alyx, Blade and Sorcery, Moss Book, and the list goes on. To be clear, these are games that cannot be run on the Quest 2 or the Pico unless you connect them to the PC anyway. So another big win for PC VR in round 2, but ladies and gentlemen, this is a very long fight, so do not count out standalone VR in the rest of this fight here. And also, if you are still here at this point, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. Let's begin round 3! Body tracking, my friend. So what is body tracking? Some of you may not know, so I'm just going to explain it really quickly. Body tracking is the ability to enter VR games, and instead of just having your character move around, you will actually have your character move the way that your body is moving. So the way that I'm doing this right now is what your character would do in the game as well, which is pretty freaking cool. And there are some great videos on people using this to impress friends and troll others and just have a great time and really mess with games' physics like VR Chat and Blade and Sorcery. So it's a really great thing, and standalone VR does have a very hard time getting this to work. PC VR pretty much has no hard time at all. Well, I mean, there's a lot of equipment involved, but as of right now, it's pretty much the only way to get tracking and body tracking going for your VR headset. So by default, PC VR yet again wins. And a little honorable mention, it's not always just body tracking. There are things like eye tracking and mouth tracking and a few other tracking things, even like VTubing to an extent. Like, there's definitely a lot more things that you could do with PCVR, which is pretty cool, which you can even put into the same realm as just customization capabilities. You know, PCVR, because you're working with a computer, a real PC, you can customize and really adjust things a little bit more to your liking, and it can even help you if you're a creator or an influencer to do more things than maybe a standalone VR will allow you to do, such as modding, which we all know is a huge thing in any gaming community. So again, PCVR, big uppercut in round 3. But let's move on to round 4. Pricing. Everything that I've spoken about with the PCVR stuff is very nice, but it would seem as though PCVR is meant for the rich and the wealthy. PCVR headsets usually cost hundreds of dollars more than the standalone VR headsets that we have available today. And the only standalone VR headset that is a consistently viable option is the Oculus Quest 2. All of the standalone VR headsets are either PC VR headsets that can be standalone, or kind of beta, still in production standalone VR headsets that they're still trying to work out the kinks on to this day. So you really only have the Quest 2 to consistently rely on, coming in at about $400 to $500, whereas every other headset is upwards of $600, many of them being upwards of $1,000. And that does not even include the fact that you need a pretty good PC in order to run PCVR. You go and you spend $1,000 on a PCVR headset, and then the PC that you get is also $1,000 or more, depending, like it depends on how you're going to go about this stuff. But at the bare minimum, we're talking about $2,000+ just to start running some PCVR. And that does not include the games, that does not include the accessories, that does not include the like, come on, like the list kind of goes on. So PCVR is a very expensive journey, whereas standalone VR, $500 for the Quest 2. You will have a great experience with VR out the box for way less than $1,000 if you go for standalone VR headsets, i.e. the Oculus Quest 2. So standalone VR headsets as of right now are pretty much cheaper, with that measuring stick being really only the Quest 2, but still a fine measuring stick because that is the premier standalone VR headset for anyone trying to get into this space. And yes, standalone VR headsets are generally more inexpensive because they're not really the powerhouse of graphics that PC VR headsets are, but what you lose in quality, you gain abundantly in mobility and comfortability, which are the right and left hooks that's going to damage PCVR very badly in this boxing / debate match right now. You see, until you've tried PCVR, you will never really know how cumbersome and annoying it is to seemingly be free in a whole other world, maybe even universe, and then only to be yanked back into reality by the freaking cord connected to your PC. Now, let's say you don't want to use a wire, and let's say you're going to connect to your PC through a wireless means, such as Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. Here's another problem. You still have to be near your PC. You can't just go to another room. You can't just, take your headset and travel to some other place and enjoy it there. No. If you do not have some type of PC involved in this whole setup, you are confined to a certain distance at all times. So even if you don't want to use a wire, you still got to be within maybe 10, maybe 20 feet of your PC. That can really hamper your VR experience quite a bit. But with a standalone VR headset, I can use it at the office, I can use it at my house, I can use it at my friend's house, and likely very soon I'll be able to use it outside, all without needing any type of proximity, cable, cord, or anything to a PC or any other device in the world. Just me and my headset, which will allow me to be very comfortable. And speaking of comfortability, standalone VR headsets are generally lighter and more comfortable to put on your head. PC VR headsets still kind of feel like a brick on top of your forehead. Now, they are getting better and lighter over time with more and more generations of PC VR headsets coming out. They're shrinking them and making them better and more manageable, but geez, those things are still pretty clunky, whereas the Quest and some other standalone VR headsets are much lighter on your head in comparison to HTC and others. And going back to the graphics discussion, yes, standalone VR headsets don't offer as great a quality as PC VR headsets do, but they do not trail behind that much. Standalone VR headsets have come a very long way. I would say that if you're having a 9 experience on PC VR headsets, then the Oculus is maybe a 7. It's not that far behind. So in terms of quality, it's not a steep drop. And if you are more of a person that is interested in free mobility, absolute reign of control, and freedom, then you might find standalone VR headsets to be 10 times better than any PCVR headset could ever be. But at the end of the day, this is a preference thing. So please do not take this video as some buy all, end all, be all answer to the question. Just understand that it is more open-ended than you would think, especially in 2022. It really does depend on what you're looking for. Me as a content creator, I probably will end up moving a little bit more into PCVR than I personally would like, because I love standalone VR. It's very nice to move around my living room and do whatever the hell I want, how I want. It's a lot more fun. But PCVR will allow me to mod games and, do some awesome things like body tracking whenever I want, and, create content that is very unique that maybe YouTube has never seen before. So these are things to keep in mind. Though generally speaking, if you're new to VR, I highly recommend the Oculus Quest 2 before you go drop $1,000 on a PCVR. That's what I gotta say about all this. There's your answer. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace, man.